I had one patient who was 89 years old. And I found over and over again that some of these folks are the primary caregivers for others. So they care for their spouse, or in this particular case, this lady was the caregiver for her sister. And her main worry, and she was so worried, she was so sick herself, but she was so worried about her sister. And I thought of the two of you all, because I thought how close they were and how much they cared for each other. And so I said, would you feel better if we could get her on the phone so you could talk to her? And her sister had dementia and she was really sick and herself. And I said, let's try to get her on the phone so you can hear her voice and know that she's okay. We called her up and I held the phone up to her and I said, she's okay. Listen, she's okay. She's waiting for you to get back to her and she's going to be okay. But the selflessness of so many people who were so sick themselves but were worried about someone else was really touching, and trying to do your best to get them in touch with each other throughout this was a big part of it.
You've probably seen some of the same things that we have in interviewing people, is that if you look at social media, if you just look at the surface, this seems like there's a lot of angry people out there. But that's a smokescreen. That's not real. And then when we're interviewing people, we're seeing people that were just caring for their children, loving their spouse, going out for a run, doing everyday things, and then boom, they got hit with this and their life completely changed. And we're sitting here talking with them and all of us are crying. Too many times we buy into the story that the media tells us that there's a lot of hatred when there's really a lot of love out there.
I agree. There's a lot of love and there's a lot of noise because it's just ugly. The thing is in front of me right now, and the task in front of me right now is to help this person breathe.
Did any of the patients, of course we're talking about COVID-19 patients at this point, did any of them tell you anything that stuck with you about what they're going through?
Yeah, just that in the moments before someone's about to be intubated, if they're able to talk, they will always say, tell my family I love them. And that's before, they're paralyzed and they get intubated, and who knows how long it'll be before they can speak again. And I always hope that that's almost like a rebirth afterwards. Like the last thing that you're going to think of before you're not able to have conscious thoughts are tell my family I love them. But that's the things that we hear over and over again, or tell my wife I love her, tell my husband I love him, tell my kids I love them, right before they're intubated. That gets you. Imagine how you feel when you've had the flu, and you've been in bed for a couple of days, how weak you are. This disease is so much worse than that. And it attacks every system of your body. And a lot of people have been saying how their bones hurt, like their spine hurts, every bone just hurts. And so it's not surprising that someone would be so weak that they have to learn to walk again after being on a ventilator for 8 days. And it's awful.
I think that's something that the general public doesn't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's, when you see people, go home, I think I said something to Doug about this. You see people go home, but they go home using a walker, or they have to go home on a stretcher and be helped out. It is not something that you just bounce back from. And imagine then on top of that, you're elderly and you have diabetes, or you're elderly and you have another comorbidity. It is that much harder to come back from. And I just, Ooh, I pray around the clock for people who are suffering. I just hate to think that the people who've been through this, I kind of think of them as pioneers. You know, they were out there in the front of this and suffered through it. And so many have recovered, thank God. And I'm glad that they are saying their stories to people, because people need to know that this is not just a simple illness. And it's not the first time this is going to happen. It's not the only time it's going to happen. It's going to happen in the future. And we need to learn these lessons.
These people have much to teach us, for sure.
They have so much to teach us. In the healthcare community too, what did we do right? What could we have done better? How can we teach people to have more compassion for their neighbor? Well, can I tell you one thing about a scripture that's gotten me through all this?
Please.
Galatians chapter 6, verses 9 says, "And let us not be weary in well-doing, for we shall reap if we faint not." Mm-hmm. And I think of that when I am putting on my cap, and I'm putting on my eye shield, I'm putting on my gloves. I say I might be weary, but God says to hang in there, because there's going to be a reward at the end of all this for all of us who are smart and care for other people and share people's stories like you're doing. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, you're a hero.
You are.
So thank you for being on the front lines. I can't imagine being in that position.